How many of you have enjoyed Paul's video?
I love it. Yeah.
It's so good. That's the last time you're going to see that video. Unless you go to YouTube, I guess you could watch that then. But we're moving into a new series next week. But this one, I've had such an incredible amount of fun sharing these thoughts and ideas over this early church. I've had a lot of interesting feedback. It has been such a blessing to go over this book, Acts. And so today, if you are a visitor, by the way, welcome. Hopefully you got one of those little gift bags. I'm looking for the visitors. You filled out one of those cards. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so glad you're here. I hope this feels like home. In the book of Acts, we understand that this is a community of people that are in the midst of a lot of brokenness, persecution. They're asking, where is God? And so through Paul and the story of Paul for these people in the 100 AD, they're seeing and they're experiencing what it looks like to experience God even though you're in the midst of the storm. And so before I begin this teaching entitled Storms and an Ending Without Resolution, let me offer a word of prayer. God, we thank you and we praise you that we are able to come together in community. We thank you for the examples of Paul and Peter and the other early disciples who helped form these communities of people. We ask, Lord, that as we see how they walked in the footsteps of Christ, we will learn to do the same. In your name we pray, amen. So, has everyone enjoyed reading Acts, by the way? Yeah, good. 5 of us. I think it's good. It's a good book. And we can talk more about it later in our post-study even. But in the book of Acts, it ends kind of differently. It ends without an easy resolution. And so what's going to happen toward the end with Paul is that Paul's in prison, and now he's going to be sent on this trip into the heart of Rome. And he's going to take a cruise. Where are the Oswalds? He's going to take a cruise. This is going to look nothing like yours. He goes on this cruise, and unfortunately the whole ship begins to fall apart, and he ends up on an island, and he's bit by a snake, and a bunch of interesting occurrences happen we're going to look at today. And so Paul is on this voyage, and he's heading toward Rome, where he's eventually going to experience his death. In chapter 27, verse 9, it says this. Now, when much time was spent, and when the sailing was now dangerous because of the Day of Atonement, some of your texts will read fast, was now already past, Paul admonished them. I'm learning whenever I come across a text, I'm asking lots of questions of it. And so when I get here, here's a question I asked of myself. What did the Day of Atonement have to do with danger? Why was this dangerous? This was a festival that the Jews kept. And in this festival, they would kill the family goat or lamb or dove, whatever they had, and then they would experience wholeness as a community and as individuals. What does that have to do with danger, unless you're an animal? I started looking into this a little bit, this festival. A lot of interesting things happen. By the way, how many of you have ever traveled in Los Angeles, Orange County on Thanksgiving? Yeah, you told yourself never again, right? Christmas, you got out there and you were just like, Lord, help me. I've had to go to the bathroom for the last 12 hours that I've been in this car. I'm only going 20 miles. It's insane. That's not actually what's going on here, though, for this feast day where they all travel to Jerusalem. Here's what's happening. During this time period, the feast happened at the end of September, early October. And the Mediterranean seas are really chaotic. And so to travel, to get to Jerusalem, you're going to go through some bad weather. So watch me now. For a Jew, they began to understand the Day of Atonement. They connected it with the storms. So in order for the community or the individual to experience wholeness, you had to go through the storm. Everyone say, ah. Yeah. How many of you right now are going through some storms, some chaotic waters? If you're not, you're pretending right now. This community, we've had a lot of storms the last couple of weeks. And I'm not talking about literal, I'm talking about these symbolic ones where it messes up your family. It changes things. We had a death in this community, a tragic one. A lot of things have been happening here. And there are all these storms. What do you do when you're in the midst of the storm? Here's what Paul says. When you are in the midst of your storm and the waters are raging, he says, remember this. There is dry land on the other side of it. There is solid ground. And so in the middle of your storm, he says, hold on. Hold on. Don't give up. The storm is causing you some very real fears and anxieties. Hold on, because there is life and wholeness on the other side of it. And that's what atonement was teaching the people there in Jerusalem. Paul begins to be this figure, this person who begins to walk in the footsteps of Jesus. And I want to share with you 2 points about Paul's journey that I find really fascinating. Here's the first one. Paul instructs, when he's on the boat, he starts instructing the sailors how to sail. I don't know if you caught that. He instructs the sailors how to sail. That'd be like Joe on his cruise coming up, going to the captain and being like, hey, Cap, I got this. Grabs the steering wheel. I know where we're going. Where are we going? Warm. Okay? Or like me going to Best Buy, going to the Geek Squad and being like, hey, bro. I got this. Oh, what's your occupation? You must be good with technology. I'm a pastor. Just go, you can go. I got this taken care of. That hard drive, I'll soften it for you. Who's this guy? And so Paul begins instructing the sailors, which would seem very odd to anyone during this time period. But here's the beauty of what Paul and the early church are understanding. When you are in chaotic waters, the gospel message of Jesus can help you navigate through any storm. You're in conflict. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. You're in conflict with someone. The gospel message says, love your enemies. Love the one you're frustrated with. And when you do, you take back power. You learn to navigate. When you're in the middle of brokenness and there's a storm and you feel like you're going under, you learn to reach out and ask for help. And your community will lift you up and help you walk on water. He helps them, he shares with them, he instructs them how to navigate, not just some boat. He instructs an early church how to navigate through life. The next part is this. Paul, after the shipwreck, because he shares with them a message, he says, this thing's going down. This puppy's it's going down. We can all survive, though, if you listen to what I have to say. And they do. And they survive. Even his enemies, these Roman centurions, they survive. And they land stranded on this island. And on this island, they have these pesky snakes. And they keep attacking people, biting people, and people are dropping like flies. And as they're making camp, Paul, he's throwing some wood and he gets bit by a snake. And of course, the snakes are from the gods, according to these people. The gods must be angry. And so they're angry. And so Paul, of course, is going to die. But they watch and they wait. Paul doesn't die. They actually call Paul a god. Paul says, I'm not a god, but I know where to look for life. And Paul survives the snake bite. And he actually begins to preach messages that heal everyone on this island. And anyone reading this about a stranded people who begin to refocus and redirect their attention and find life, they pick up on this. A Hebrew person would have immediately gone to Numbers 21, 4-9. Moses sees his people stranded in the middle of a desert. And he says to them, look, you're getting bit by all these snakes and you're dying. We keep going the wrong direction. You keep steering it in the wrong direction. Let me show you life. He lifts up the white snake, and I'm not talking about the band. He lifts it up, and people focus then, again, they refocus on God, and they find life. And so anyone reading this, they pick up on this picture. Paul is helping them re-navigate their lives. He's helping them refocus what's important again in the midst of feeling like they're stranded, they're broken, they're in the middle of storms. I'm learning some things. I'm learning a lot of things lately from friends, from books I'm reading, from my own experiences. When I'm in the middle of a storm, I'm going to share with you some ideas I've been learning how to navigate and refocus. Let me share with you. The first thing I'm learning to do when I'm in the middle of a storm is this. I'm learning to take responsibility. How many of you love that phrase, take responsibility? It's not easy to swallow. Here's what I'm learning to do. When there's an issue, when something comes up, usually, if I'm going to be honest with myself, I'm the cause of it. Usually, I'm the cause of most of my storms. But I'm learning in that moment, even if I'm not the cause of that storm, if someone else is, the worst thing I can do is look back and say, you're the reason, that's the reason, and start pointing backwards. Because what that does is it causes me to remove myself from my own present journey. I become bitter and angry, and all I'm doing is living in the past. What I'm learning to do right now is to say this. I have responsibility right now for my actions right here. What do I do with the life, with the present reality I have before me? What do I do? Take responsibility. It is yours and only yours, no matter what has happened, no matter who is the cause, whether you or someone else. Another thing I'm learning, there's growth in the struggle. One of my friends, he's annoying. Every time an issue comes up, my friend, we'll call him Frag. I'll just call him Craig. That's his real name. Since we're being authentic and honest. And some of my other friends do this as well, but something will happen and something will really frustrate me, and periodically he'll call and say, how you doing? And I'll just be like, blah, 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 that's how I'm doing. And he'll say, oh, well, what did you learn? I'm like, come on. I don't want to hear that. Stupid question. I learn. And so I start looking back and I realize, I kind of did learn from that a little bit, didn't I? If you allow those things that happen, those struggles, you have choices. You can let it break you, or you can say, how did I grow from this? How can I grow from this? What can I learn from this thing? Oh, the way you navigate storms. You become not the guy in the storm that's just kind of like, oh, and another wave hits you. You become the guy that's surfing every wave and laughing. You're that guy. I'm learning this. I'm learning to choose better problems. Again, most of the problems I have, I am the cause. But there's some problems that I am purposely choosing to participate in, which means this. When I choose to participate in them, that also means that I could choose not to participate in them. Some of you, like me, you participate in every single little drama at work, don't you? And you get so caught up in it. And before you know it, you're the spokesperson. How did that happen? You get so caught up, you join every single committee. What are you thinking? Stop. Choose better problems. You can choose the problems that you have. Choose better problems. The majority of them you can choose. Choose better ones. Say to that committee, I think I'm going to pass today. I'm going to choose a better problem. I do this all the time. I compare myself with others. I'll be in the weight room. You ever notice that? I love that you just laughed. Just openly laughed. You're just not ashamed. Bit of a joke. I'm in the weight room and I'm working out with my friends, and then they're like, I'm lifting and I'm seeing my muscles and they're coming in. There's a little bulge that wasn't there before. It's very tiny. And then I look over at Jimmy. I'm like, those arms are not natural. Like, that's my leg. That's my leg that you have on your arm. I begin comparing my progress with his, and I begin to think, man, I don't know what I need to do. Maybe I just need to give up. I'm just going to go get donuts. I'm just going to give up. But what I'm learning is when I begin to compare myself with everyone else, I stop living my own journey and I start living someone else's. I jumped out of my boat and I'm trying to steer yours. That doesn't work. I need to learn how to be present in my own journey. No one has been walking in your shoes at this time with the same upbringing you have. You are pretty original. You're a unique person. You're on your own journey. Don't compare yourself to others. There's this weird idea that that person got all the blessings. Obviously, Jimmy was born with muscles when he came out of the womb. But that's not my journey. It's not my journey. Are you eating a donut, Jimmy? Tell me you're not eating it. You dirty rat. Good. But that's not my journey. My journey's different, and I got to learn how to be present in my journey. Stop comparing yourself to others. You are steering your boat in the wrong direction. I'm learning this also. There is failure. Always failure, but if you learn how to use that failure, it can actually become a tool for you to find more success. One of my favorite writers, Seth Godin, he wrote this book, Lynchpin. And he said that when he has individuals come into his office for their yearly reviews, he has them sit down across from him and he asks this question, many others, but he'll ask this one in particular. He'll say this, tell me where you failed once this year. In most companies, that would be like, oh no, how do I sugarcoat this? In his company, you don't sugarcoat that. You describe your failure. Is he then praises you for it. He'll say, I am so thankful that you tried something new. What did you learn? Because once you learned something from your failure, you just became a more valuable individual to our company. When you experience failures, don't beat yourself up. We in the Christian tradition, we're very good at beating ourselves up, aren't we? Don't beat yourself up. It happened. You failed. Now stop. Ask yourself this. What did I learn? How did I grow? How am I a more valuable person to the world, to my community, to my family? When you do this, you begin navigating that storm in such a more powerful way. Lastly, I'm beginning to, even though I think I could rule the world much better than everyone else in here, even though I'm pretty sure if I was in charge of your life would be better. Any parents out there hearing me? The reality is, you have control of you. And because of that, there's a lot of uncertainty all around you. You cannot control other people. You should not allow other people to control you. And so learn in the midst of all of it to embrace it. That person has a different opinion than me. Okay. What can I learn? That person sees the world very differently than me. Okay. Learn to embrace that. Don't try to change them so you feel comfortable. That is a very long, abrasive, terrible journey. Your boat will sink over and over again if that's you. Stop trying to control people. Learn to love them. And when you do that, you begin walking in that kind of love for yourself. Paul shares with his people how to navigate through the storms. It's not easy. What's annoying about the book of Acts is this. How many of you like to have the ending resolved in your movies and in your stories? You like a resolution, don't you? Ever watch that stupid movie, Inception? It's a fabulous movie. It's really good. At the end, though, it's all about this guy that goes into a dream within a dream within a dream and blah, 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 and there's all these layers. And at the end, he spins this top. And if the top falls, well, he's in reality. If the top keeps spinning, oh, it's just a dream. And so how they end this movie is the top is spinning and it wobbles a little bit and you're like, oh, and then they go black. I remember the whole movie theater is like this. Oh, everyone. And we just let out this, oh, come on. Because there's no resolution. And we need resolution, don't we? But if we're going to be real today, let's all just admit, resolutions are very rare and far between, aren't they? Because life is a journey of ups and downs, waves falling and crashing. It's not always as simple as an easy resolution. In this time period, they had this thing called Des Machina, which meant God comes out of the machine. And so what they would do here is they would create this problem, and then the gods would step in, and they'd immediately solve it, and everything was good. And in Acts, you see this played out until the very end. If you only read the book of Acts, you would not know what happens to Paul. For an early church, they're hanging on this, and they're saying, what happens, Paul? And Paul does something brilliant. Paul, at the very end, he leaves this phrase kind of dangling. And it's so interesting to notice this. Because again, we love the resolutions, but Paul doesn't give you a resolution. He says, early church, your lives are going to be rough. They're going to be chaotic. They're going to be disruptive. Storms will come, storms will go. There won't always be easy resolutions. The reality is the life you have is what you've been given, and it's beautiful. Learn to sail the storms and the sea. And when you do so, you have lived fully. And at the end, he says this. He lived without restraint. He lived without restraint. Paul, a prisoner, lives his life toward the end free. Paul, someone who is over and over again beaten, accused of being a disruptor, told to be silenced. He's silenced over and over again. What he does is he turns and he says, let me share with you more of my gospel. And he continues disrupting. In the midst of all of this, he chooses to live without restraint. I want to end with this story. My friend Grant, he's part of this church, and the church kind of has these different ideas. They don't believe that you have to take membership and all those things to be part of their community. You just come, you just show up. And this community started in Washington. It's actually grown. It has all these satellite churches. And my friend is good friends with the founder. A couple weeks ago, the head of this movement, he sent out this email to some of his close friends and leaders and family. And he said, I have been diagnosed with this brain tumor. And it is inoperable. They're giving me maybe a couple months max. He said, what they've told me is that these months are going to be rough. I'm going to lose the ability to speak and do the things that I am most passionate about. So he said, I want to invite all of you to my church for just an evening where I can just share a little bit more while I still have the ability to do so. And so my friend, he showed up and he had all these different ideas of what this was going to look like. But what it looked like was very different. His friend just sat on a stool up front and he started sharing his journey. And things, he said, began to get a little emotional. He talked about missing his family. He talked about how he wished he had a little more life left. He said all of this has really put things into perspective for him. And then he said this. He said, I've begun to see my life like a cup. A cup that was once full of love and compassion, mercy, forgiveness for my family, for my friends, my community. This cup was filled with all of my dreams and ideas. And he said, I realized that I have not completely emptied the cup. I've been scared to share some of the ideas I've had. I've been frustrated with people, and so I haven't forgiven fully without restraint. I haven't emptied my cup, he said. I haven't emptied my cup. And he gave this challenge to the people there, all the leaders. He said, while you have the gift of life, empty your cup. Empty your cup. Because the reality is you only have so many steps. You only have so many breaths, so many heartbeats. And what happens at the end of your life, if you still have something in the cup, the Christian life, the Christ path is learning to empty the cup fully. And the beauty about learning to empty the cup is when you empty yourself fully. When you forgive, when you love, when you spend time with that family, when you try all of these dreams that you've had and you give them your best, sometimes failing miserably, you dump it out. And what happens with the Christian journey is when you pick it back up again, what happened? It's full. And the life is constantly emptying and filling, emptying and filling. May you, at the end of your lives, may you right now be the kind of person that empties your cup. Don't do it selfishly. Don't save anything extra. Empty it all. If there's a person you're struggling with right now, empty the cup with love, mercy. Pour it on them. If there's a person in your life that you've not been spending time with and there are these roadblocks having those conversations, empty the cup. While you still have that relationship there, empty the cup. Empty the cup. She asked you to take the trash out. Take the trash out. Empty the cup. Fully empty the cup. Live a life without restraint. Walk in the disruptive path of Jesus. Learn to weather the storms. Learn to sail the storms. Laugh at the wind. Learn to weather the storm, knowing there's life outside of this. Empty your cup fully.